Tens of millions of Canadians, you no doubt are maybe one of them at home, coast to coast, facing winter weather. Nearly every province facing winter weather warnings today. Take a look at the map issued by Environment Canada, and you get a sense of how things stand right now. In British Columbia, heavy snowfall mixed with freezing rain in some areas. A monster storm bearing down on eastern Canada. Environment Canada meteorologist we spoke to, Stephen Flesfitter, says people in Ontario and Quebec and other parts east should prepare for low visibility and the possibility of power outages. We know that, in fact, has already started. Listen to this.
Winds are just starting to kick into high gear throughout the GTA. Pearson Airport's reporting about 80 kilometers per hour right now. That's expected to increase to at least 90 kilometers per hour over the next couple of hours. So heavy snow, strong winds, those combined give visibility reductions. We've already seen very low visibilities throughout southwestern Ontario. That's what we expect to come through the GTA over the next few hours. Following that, with those strong winds, power outages are very likely.
And we're also seeing temperatures dropping as well very quickly in parts of Ontario and Quebec. About 100 vehicles have been involved in just a massive pileup on the Highway 401, just west of London, Ontario, in the far southwest of the province. Take a look at this photo here, provided by the local fire department. The storm severely reducing visibility. Drivers are not able to stop in time because of the ice and the snow. Sections of the highway now, this is a huge highway, closed off in both directions as emergency crews try to assess the damage. There's no word yet coming in on how many people may have been injured. The Ontario Provincial Police Force saying this is a dangerous situation.
We've had several OPP vehicles already struck by traffic in the area. We've had a fire truck itself also get struck in a collision. We have sections of Highway 402 closed as a result of multiple collisions. There's lake effect snow, there's system snow. It is deteriorating, and that wind is blowing, and that system is coming here towards the GTA as well. It is really looking pretty grim.
And many other collisions being reported around Ontario and elsewhere as the weather deteriorates. Police are urging people to stay off the roads unless absolutely necessary. If you do drive, go slow. Give yourself plenty of room to stop in case of a sudden slowdown. All right, a live look for you right now. Some of our cameras coming in. This is Toronto, major highway. But as you can see, there's not a lot of volume. People are heeding that advice to stay off the roads unless they absolutely have to. City crews are out too. We're seeing the same thing in Ottawa and in Montreal and in many places in eastern Canada. Let's start with this. The snow is falling in Toronto, starting to accumulate, and as I mentioned, plummeting temperatures as well. That could result in what's known as flash freezing conditions. The city's director of operations and maintenance has some advice for drivers. Listen to this.
To those people who do have to get out is to drive extremely cautiously and slowly. Drive according to the conditions, the weather conditions, and how quickly it can change from rain to freezing rain to snow back to freezing rain. We're talking about a very challenging and tricky storm here. So drive extremely slowly, cautiously. Also, when you see our equipment, please allow the equipment to do its work. Don't drive close to the equipment. Don't try to cut them off or speed around them. Please allow our equipment to make the roads safe for all its users.
All right, meantime, let's bring in Stuart Green. He is with the Toronto Transit Commission. A lot of people today, Stuart, as you know, are deciding to take public transit and maybe avoid using their own vehicles if they have them. What's the latest in terms of the transit system today, right now?
So as of now, we're doing okay. We had an issue with some icing on our streetcar overhead network that we were able to deal with. The trick, of course, was that we weren't able to put out the preventative methods because the rain was washing it all away. So we've managed through that. Generally speaking, the roads in Toronto are slick, but they're not snow covered yet. So, we'll continue to operate safely throughout the day. And we just remind people, leave extra time if you are taking transit today. If you have to leave the house, perhaps transit's a better way. Certainly the subway system does very, very well in this weather when compared to the others. Our streetcars and our buses, of course, move in mixed traffic. So they're subject to road conditions. So they will move safely, but that may mean a little slower.
Yeah, how about the buses? And we're just showing some footage here because I remember earlier this year in Toronto, there were issues with a lot of the buses. As you're saying, subways, we understand they do pretty well in a storm like this. Buses, more challenging.
Yeah, so I mean, the footage you're showing is probably from January.
Mm.
That was a bad storm for us here in Toronto, and we did have a number of buses that got stuck while in transit. One of the things that we've done, we've changed as a result of that, is we now take 41 bus stops out of service. So it's not full routes; it's just one or two stops along, several different routes that are on particularly hilly roads. So there are some parts of Toronto that have significant hills on them. The trouble we were having then was that buses would stop to pick people up or drop people off and then not be able to get restarted. So we've identified those stops. We've taken those stops out of service. So people have to go to the stop before or after the one that they're looking at. We've got notices posted. All of the stops are on our website. We of course advise people to check the website before they leave to plan their trip. So that's how we're managing the buses getting stuck issue. And hopefully we don't have a repeat of what happened in January.
Yeah, Christmas Eve, of course, tomorrow as well, Stuart, as you know, and I'm wondering what you think the TTC might see.
Well, so again, it's all going to depend on the weather. I mean, we're subject to the weather conditions. If people are going out and about, and have to get out, and we absolutely understand that there are people that have to get out, people that work in hospitals or frontline services, same people that we saw during the pandemic who had to take transit. We want to be there for those people, and our commitment is to deliver them to their location safely. We typically see over the Christmas period lower ridership, so that sort of helps a little bit, but we don't take that for granted. We still need to be there for the people that absolutely need public transit. And in Toronto, a lot of people do.
Stuart, good to see you again. I appreciate you taking some time for CTV News.
Thank you, Todd.
Stuart Green with the Toronto Transit Commission. All right, let's show you again these public weather alerts. We're going to be bringing this up throughout the day just to give you a sense, depending on where you're watching us, what your province can expect. And you see just almost the entire country really in red. Certainly all the major population centers are dealing with this. We're talking about tens of millions of Canadians being affected by this. Let's show you the radar map as well of that major storm system. You can see as it's moving its way, Toronto to Ottawa and then onwards into Quebec and Montreal as well. And all, of course, these big cities and towns dealing with all of this poor road conditions. And yeah, of course, it is the holiday season, and that's leading to a lot of disruptions for people having to leave early or maybe reconsider where they're going. Another big issue, of course, power failures. We can tell you that a lot of Canadians now are dealing with this intermittently. About 200,000 people are without power in the province of Quebec alone because of that strong snowstorm that's sweeping through Quebec. The hardest hit areas are Quebec City, the Laurentians, the Outaouais region just across from Ottawa. Minor outages have been reported in the city of Montreal as well. Environment Canada for Montreal has issued a flash freeze warning. That happened about 9 o'clock this morning Eastern time, so about 4 hours ago. Hydro-Quebec says the number of people without power could increase. Crews are working to restore it as soon as possible. It is a challenge, though, in the middle of a snowstorm to try and bring back power. You get a sense as well what's happening on some of the airports, too. Some of this footage coming in from our viewers dealing with very difficult conditions as well in the airports and beyond. Let's bring in Maxence Houard-Lefebvre. He is with Hydro-Quebec. He's a spokesperson there. Maxence, good to see you, and I appreciate you taking the time. What's the latest for Hydro-Quebec?
Thank you for having me. Well, the latest, we have a lot of outages right now. As you said, it's about 240,000 people without power. It's customers, so 240,000 houses without power right now. We have a lot of employees on the field, despite it's the holiday season beginning. So our crews responded present to the call we made. So we have about 1,000 people working on the field today. But it's very challenging because the weather continues to be bad and the area affected is very big, as you just show on the map. It's always in the country. It's everywhere. Sorry, in the country. It's everywhere in the United States. So we cannot take crews from one region to take them to go in another region to help because there are outages in close to every region in Quebec.
Yeah, and how do you guys go about preparing for this? I mean, Quebec is no stranger, as you know very well, to difficult winters. It means Hydro-Quebec is very familiar with the challenges and has really good teams, very experienced to do this. But as you know, when it's very bad weather, it's hard to prepare for everything.
Yeah, You're absolutely right. The first thing we did at the beginning of the week when we saw the weather coming is to be sure we had enough equipment, so enough transformers, enough hydro poles, enough wires, because we know we will have to replace equipments. And we have all of these. It's not going to be an issue. And after, we are going to call back teams to have more people, because there are always line workers on duty that are on call if there are events. But we knew it was not going to be enough, so we called more teams to come to work. And our line workers are very proud people, and despite it's the holiday season, they wanted to be here to help and to restore power, so people can wish to have power back to Christmas. But in some regions, the weather condition will continue to be bad. It's like a marathon, so we don't know exactly how bad it will be tonight or tomorrow with the weather that continues to be bad.
One last question. You talked about Christmas and the people who are without power. Are you hoping to get as many people back into the grid as possible within the next 24 to 48 hours?
We are working with all our energy to do so, but it's a challenge. So, and tomorrow there could be new outages. So this is the challenge. So depending on that, but there are right now over 1,000 different outages. So it means our teams have to go in 1,000 different places to fix equipment, to replace wires, to remove broken branches that fall because of the wind gusts that are very violent. So unfortunately, I think there still be people without power on Christmas, but we are doing everything we can to reduce this number as low as it is possible.
Max Huard-Lefebvre, spokesperson with Hydro-Québec. Thank you for this. Much appreciated, Max.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to go as well to the latest on the travel situation. More than 300 WestJet flights alone have been canceled because of this big storm sweeping through much of the country. Let's go to CTV's Sean Leathong, who is at Canada's busiest airport, Toronto Pearson. Sean, what's happening where you are?
Well, it's living up to its name, Todd. It is the busiest airport right now. Many people coming through, trying to get out, trying to get home for Christmas. But we know that over 33% of flights going out and 33% of flights coming in have been canceled today. You mentioned that WestJet canceling all their flights after 9 a.m. Eastern today. We spoke to a number of people in the area today who were hoping to get out. A few people who had flights planned for 10 o'clock in the morning, and unfortunately, they're not able to get out. So a lot of people rebooking, hoping that they can maybe get to their sunny destinations or maybe even get home. And we saw some people that had been stranded because, because Toronto is such a busy hub, many people were on layovers trying to get through here. I spoke to a mother who was trying to get to Winnipeg, or grandmother rather, had been visiting her grandchildren, was trying to get to Winnipeg so she could get back to the Thunder Bay area. Unfortunately, she doesn't know if she's going to be stuck here for Christmas. So there's a lot of stories of people caught up in that situation. But the GTAA has been asking people to check their flight status before they come here. A number of flights being canceled well in advance, but some other cancellations piling up. Now, I said that number of 33% cancellations. Just to give you some context, we all remember back to previously in the summer, spring and summer, where there were a lot of cancellations in and out of Pearson. Back then, the cancellation number was only 20 to 25%. So that gives you a context of just how much is being canceled because of this inclement weather today. So it's a very difficult day for travelers in here and people who maybe had been hoping to get out, many of them checking their flight status before and staying home, Todd.
And the weather is getting worse in the greater Toronto area, as we know, Sean, so that also can have an effect even later today and right through to Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and the staff of the GTAA are keeping people updated throughout the day. We know that the morning in Toronto here was very rainy until about 9, 10 o'clock, and then it started turning over, the high winds coming up, the snow coming, and I can see it right out the window right now. The snow is actually coming in. It looks virtually sideways because the winds are so bad right now. So when it comes to flights that even are on time, we're planning to get out, everybody is kind of shrugging their shoulders, saying they don't know if exactly it's going to happen today. Like just a little while ago, for some context, I spoke to a woman who is actually the coach for the Brazilian junior curling team. They live in Vancouver and train there all year round. They said they've been here since December 20th, trying to get back to Vancouver just in time for Christmas. Right now, they don't have a flight. They're frustrated, not knowing if they'll be able to see their families on Christmas, get home for Christmas. And as we get closer, more and more people just don't know, Todd.
Sean Leathong at Pearson International in Toronto. Thank you, Sean, for this.
Thank you.
So Pearson is the busiest. Montreal's Trudeau International Airport is the second busiest in the country. There too, delays, cancellations, a lot of worries by travelers whether they'll get in or out in time for the holidays. CTV's Matt Grillo is live there. Matt, good to see you. What's the latest where you are at Trudeau?
Well, Todd, sort of, a handful of cancellations here and there. It's kind of, if you look at the departure board, it's sort of peppered with cancellations, some more delays as well. The board isn't completely red with canceled flights, but there is a couple of big problem spots, at least within Canada. Toronto and Vancouver, a lot of canceled flights to Toronto, a lot of canceled flights to Vancouver. And we caught up with some passengers earlier in the day who were saying once they find out the flight is canceled, the frustration really begins, because then they're trying to get the airline, perhaps a customer agent rep from the airlines on the phone. That takes at least 45 minutes, an hour, maybe even beyond an hour for some people. And even when they get someone on the phone, there's no quick fix. There's no quick solution. And, their rejigged plans could mean waiting around for days. Some people are stranded. They might have to fly out of a different destination, figure out their way to get to Toronto, because there just simply are no options left here in Montreal. The airport here in Montreal is telling people, at least on its departures page here, of course, check your flight status before you leave to come to the airport. And if you do come to the airport, make sure you're here 3 hours in advance, regardless of where you're flying to and how long your flight is, Todd.
Yeah, and as you know, Matt, I mean, Montreal Trudeau, the airport there, they're used to this kind of thing, and perhaps they are better at it than other airports that are not used to being walloped over and over again. But still, there's only so much they can do, right, when all that snow is coming down.
Yeah, and the key, too, is where's the flight going to, right? And that plane that you're trying to take, where is it coming from, right? So there's all kinds of factors that could make your life very difficult. And we're also hearing from people that, Toronto is just a connecting point. Their next flight after that is okay, everything's fine, but they can't get to Toronto. So that throws off their travel plans altogether. So, of course, Montreal, very adept at handling snow and whatnot. But of course, it really is up to the airlines. If they feel as though it's dangerous, the flight's just not going to take off, right? So travelers show up here, keeping their fingers crossed. But of course, many people that we spoke to this morning say they expected this. It's not coming out of the blue. It's not a big surprise. Of course, the media coverage over the last couple of days, people were expecting this. Now it's just packing patience and waiting, hoping that there's an easy solution and a quick fix within the next day or so.
Yeah, well said. CTV's Matt Grillo joining us from Trudeau Airport in Montreal. Good to see you, Matt. Thank you for this today. So that's Montreal. We talked about Toronto. Let's move west to Vancouver. Travelers at Vancouver's International Airport, known as YVR, losing hope now, many of them, of being able to get home in time for Christmas, depending on where they are going. With another major storm now in the Lower Mainland, the airport is still trying to clear that backlog. Remember, from a couple of days ago, canceled, delayed flights, a 48-hour cancellation on international flight arrivals, or scaling back, is set to be lifted today. Some travelers have been at the airport, though, for days, literally sleeping on benches, chairs, makeshift beds. Many say they're at their breaking point. Their holiday plans are now upended. The CEO of Vancouver's airport spoke today about the ongoing operations and challenges. Listen to this.
Handing out food, water, blankets, making sure that people have necessary hygiene supplies, toothbrushes, making pharmacists available for those needing medications, as it has been a very, very long time for passengers who have had flights canceled since Monday night. Our operations are in full swing. We're accepting international arrivals now as of 5 a.m. this morning. We had an Air India flight come in, a Singapore Airlines and a Aeromexico depart. We do have cancellations from WestJet and Air Canada. Those have.
And we should point out that Vancouver's airport, the Lower Mainland, got a lot of snow overnight, and there is more snow to come. So you know what that's going to mean. Stay with us for on.